What's up, gamers? Aaron Shack here. And we're going to be live talking about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. The game has just dropped the NDA, so over the alpha that I got to play a little while back. And so we're able to share our thoughts, but no images or gameplay from that. So I'm just going to run some gameplay in the background, just from stuff that Rocksteady has released. None of this is my footage, but just so you have something to kind of visualize as I'm talking about my experience. And I'll ask questions or answer questions as well. Yeah, we'll go from there. So, going into the game, I was a little skeptical about how it was going to play, whether it was going to be an enjoyable experience, because what I wanted from the start was like, I wanted a Superman game. That's where I wanted Rocksteady to go next. They made the perfect Batman game, and they made 4 incredible games in the series, one by WB Games, other 3 by Rocksteady. And they told incredible stories, and I wanted to see that universe broaden. We're getting that here, but in a very unexpected way, right? So we're getting control of the Suicide Squad, and we are fighting against the Justice League because Brainiac has brainwashed the members of the Justice League, and we're fighting them. So the 4 characters that we're playing as, Deadshot, King Shark, Captain Boomerang, and Harley Quinn. Those were the 4 characters I had the chance to play as in the alpha, and I tried to get in there and get as much time playing as each of the characters, because I really wanted to feel for what is their melee combat like, what is their traversal like, what are the weapon of choice for each of these characters. Yeah, and those classic outfits actually look really good. Those actually look dope. And each one has their own style, right? King Shark has the hammers, or not the hammers, the sickles and, blade type weapons, where Harley Quinn will have like your baseball bat and hammer type stuff. Captain Boomerang, of course, has his boomerangs. Deadshot has his guns that are on his bracelets, those arm guns. And so you can use those. But then on top of that, it's a game that's primarily about shooting, so you wield all of the weapons, right? So it kind of seemed like to me, you can definitely shuffle guns around between characters, but, King Shark was like your heavy guy. He had like the heavy machine gun. He's your big tanky character. Harley Quinn was like hand cannons and SMGs. Captain Boomerang was like shotguns and boomerangs. And then sometimes I'd mix in like a hand cannon or an assault rifle with him. But then Deadshot, of course, mostly assault rifles and snipers. And I guess I'll kind of focus now on like individual characters. But I mean, that's kind of the idea. There's a wide variety of weapons that are moddable, customizable, and drop in different rarity formats. So if you're familiar with Marvel's Avengers, you're familiar with Destiny, or The Division, other games like this, guns will drop with certain rarity status. And I don't know if this is playing in the... Yeah, I guess it is. They will drop with certain rarities, which means maybe they'll have certain perks, or maybe they'll have certain stats that allow them to be better or unique or different. And of course, allegedly, the way looter shooters work is that nobody really ever gets the exact same version of a gun because there's so many different variations of how it could drop, more or less. So that's interesting to me. But yeah, let me dive into the characters. Deadshot was really the one that I was most excited to play as, because I dig the jetpack. I get that this game is really heavily about being up in the air, because that is kind of the one place where you can't be hit. It's not a cover shooter, right? Like, there's not cover all over the place. You know, you can hide behind buildings and, you know, there might be different things that you can get behind. But in general, your main source of like trying to avoid heavy melee hits on you or trying to get shot or something is, you know, either jumping really high or using your jetpack or whatever it may be. So with Deadshot, he can sort of wall run up the side of a building and use his jetpack, and that's a quick way to get from street level to the rooftops where you're fighting a lot of enemies, right? And then, of course, you can use your jetpack to sort of hover around and fly up in the air. And, of course, there's cooldowns on all this, which is kind of the struggle that you have to deal with each of the characters. You have to manage the cooldowns of your traversal. Even Captain Boomerang with his boomerangs, you know, you can't just keep warping over and over and over. You have to really time that at the right time and mix it with other traversal elements like sliding, wall running, jumping. If your character has like a double jump or something, you know, you go with that. So Deadshot was really enjoyable, but I think you need to sort of get into the skill tree and start upgrading your traversal options so that you can essentially have less worries with the cooldowns, and traversal will be a little bit easier for you on that front. Deadshot has a lot of ranged possibilities. I think a lot of the builds that I was looking at, even in just my short amount of time, when you look at the skill tree, they have several different color-coded builds that they even recommend within the game. They're like, hey, if you equip all these ones that have, you know, this pink lettering or this light blue lettering or whatever, you can sort of create the build that goes with, you know, run and gun style gameplay or critical hit style gameplay, whatever it may be, right? So you can follow that stuff in game, which might put people like me out of a job, where I'm going to be, you know, very excited to start creating builds in the game and making videos about them and sharing them with the community. I will still do that regardless of the builds that are in the game. But I see that as a win. I see that as a win that they are like, you know, trying to make sure that players are introduced to these concepts in the game. And also right here on screen, we are seeing some of the takedowns that you would use with B and Y or triangle and circle. That was something from the Arkham series that I was really glad to see show up in Suicide Squad, right? So I think for the most part, Deadshot, I focused a lot on critical hits. I focused on staying in the air, being able to snipe, hitting enemies in their crit spots, dealing as much damage as possible, being able to quickly dodge and traverse out of whatever attacks may be coming my way. When I played as Captain Boomerang, you know, naturally everybody kind of runs up the walls, right? And Captain Boomerang has a boomerang toss that he can do, and then he will teleport to the location of where the boomerang hits. So you could throw it up in the air, you could throw it at the wall, you could throw it into a group of enemies, you can use it to get in or out of combat or around, whatever you need to do, right? And some of the things he had was the ability to launch enemies into the air and project them into slow motion, and they would like float up in the air and then just boom, 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 hit them all with the shotgun while they're juggled up there. So, I mean, he has a lot of abilities that give you opportunities to control the battlefield and set up, you know, takedowns and kill shots for the rest of the team. So it makes a lot of sense to have one of... They do allow you to have, you know, if you want to play as 4 Deadshots, you can do it. But what I think is that there is so much versatility and utility with each of these characters that you really do want to have one of each on the team, because everyone fills a specific role. So, I mean, Captain Boomerang can knock these enemies up there, and Deadshot can be flying around on his jetpack, sniping and getting all the critical hits and causing explosions and stuff. King Shark can be in there doing big slams and takedowns and suppressing fire with the LMG, and Harley Quinn can be swinging around, you know, blasting stuff, blasting away and setting up different takedowns here. Another thing that you have to do, I'll actually rewind just a little bit here, is in order to get health, you have to do specific types of shots, which I think most of what we were experimenting with was shooting the enemies in the knee. So yeah, that's the slow-mo thing where he knocks him up into the air, but let me go back. Yeah, different types of shots will open up shields right there. So when you dispatch this enemy now, they're going to drop armor for you. So that's kind of your way to regenerate health. So I'm trying to figure out if that will spread across the whole team. To my knowledge, early in the game, which is what we were allowed to play, I wasn't able to generate shields for the rest of the team, but it is my knowledge through reading stuff on Twitter and seeing what the devs talk about. One of them said, when I brought that up, I said, oh, this seems like an ability that's going to generate a lot of shields for the team that we can regenerate. So, I was asking, like, would those shields show up just for me or for the team? And I think one of the devs said, you kind of have the right idea here. You're definitely thinking in the correct vein. And then, of course, you have different other elemental types that won't allow you to generate shields, but you may do like burn damage or toxicity damage or freeze damage, whatever it may be. So there's a lot of variety there. King Shark's traversal was really good. He has a lot of in-air dodges and hovering that he kind of does, as you can see right here. Yeah, so that was a shield takedown. But yeah, he can jump really high, really far, kind of like the Hulk in Marvel's Avengers. And then he can kind of do this like dash in air. And he can also do like a big downward ground pound, much like the Hulk does in Marvel's Avengers. A lot of similarities there. But I think his traversal was the easiest to understand, easiest to comprehend, and just fit into that role very easily. And he was a character that I was very surprised to see that I actually enjoyed playing as him, because I'm not a tank kind of player. I don't like playing as big, slow, hulky characters. And, his type of traversal is not my favorite. But nevertheless, it's actually really good. So now the other thing is you have the lightning bolts here. And this is when an enemy is about to hit you with something. And if you, I believe it was right bumper, if you fire a round of your weapon at them during that time, you do like a critical counter, which will stun the enemy, and you'll be able to deal monster damage. So, yeah, there's the slow-mo thing. Everyone's kind of got their own ways to get quickly into the sky and traverse. But yeah, that was one of the more powerful attacks that Captain Boomerang had. When it comes to Harley Quinn, she feels a lot like Batman. If you played the Arkham games, you will notice that she's pretty much using his grapple, and she's also using a bat drone. So that drone is flying around, and she's grappling to the drone. So she's kind of able to navigate the environment much like Spider-Man would. But yeah, she's able to do the grapnel boost, which allows you, once you get up to the ledge of a building or something, you can kind of bounce off of it and quickly maintain that momentum. Everyone kind of has their own heroics and ultimate attacks that they do. They have takedowns. They have things that can clear out large groups of enemies. Okay. I really dug stuff like that. So it is sort of an evolution on the Batman Arkham experience, but what they've done is, rather than go with the melee route that we're used to, there is still melee combat, and it's still really good. But mostly the game is based on ranged combat. So they basically took that incredible combat system that they built and kind of said, like, okay, well, how does this work if we're using guns, and how do we make this fun? How do you get that same feeling of getting a critical dodge or a counter or all these various things when you're using guns and you're potentially at range from your enemies, So you can get in there and hack and slash. You can definitely stay at a distance. You can fly around in the air. I think just alternating a lot of stuff like sliding, jumping, wall running, and of course using your traversal abilities, but you have to be very aware of the cooldowns. So you have to sort of juggle these various things if you want to maintain that momentum. And yes, you do get attacks like this where, Harley can grapple towards the enemy. That's kind of one of her heroic attacks that allows her to get in there and deal some big damage. So, I mean, the joy in playing the game is juggling all of these various things and fighting hordes of enemies. And that was really a lot of fun. But like we're seeing here, I think there was a large conversation on Twitter about the HUD being like really, I don't know, like too much information on screen. I agree to an extent, but for the most part, this is what the HUD looks like most of the time. Your weapons, your minimap, and your health, health and shields, right? Experience, knowing stuff like that. Occasionally, you'll see little objectives or tutorials popping up, and that's really just part of the beginning of the game. It's just getting used to, what are the buttons and when does this run out, all these various things, learning how the game works. But once you kind of get through that, I think the HUD becomes a little less obsessive, but it only lets you know, certain objectives in the top right corner. When you're trying to fight off hordes of enemies, it'll be like wave 5 of 10 or something, or however many enemy tanks you're supposed to destroy. So I actually really enjoyed the combat and the traversal. It's all really strong. You have to stay relatively close to your co-op players, so you do have to manage that. If you stray too far away, you'll get like the countdown timer that a bomb is about to go off in your head. And that's really cool how they link it to the lore of the Suicide Squad. Because there were some missions early on that were like, stay in the mission area, or like don't go too far away from your teammates. And it never got to be something that was annoying. I imagine some of that stuff might loosen up at certain points in the game, but I think in general, you want to stick close to your teammates. You don't want to go off fighting, two different fights on opposite ends of the city separately. You do want to be in there and working together, reviving each other, doing things that aids the team. There's the ground pound there that King Shark has. Like, this is all incredibly gratifying, and it's really fun. And I get the idea of when you haven't played this game, like you can sort of make judgment calls of, okay, well, it looks just a lot like Fortnite or like Sunset Overdrive or something. It's not really all that cool or all that fun or all that innovative. But I think when you actually get hands-on and you start creating your build, you start playing as the different characters, which I highly recommend. Like, don't just stick to one character. Like, branch out. You'll be surprised. I think Harley Quinn had the most difficult traversal with the grapnel gun, but I mean, I still think that it's going to be worth spending the time to learn her role in the team and to get better at her traversal. So that was my complaint, was I didn't understand how that worked very well. And with Deadshot, I felt like my jetpack cooldown was always running down way too fast. But I do understand that you need to learn to juggle all these various concepts in the game, and that there are traversal mods and upgrades via the skill tree that will make that easier as you go on. So there is a sort of progression that's happening with your character, with your skills, with your weaponry, with your builds, and we'll get into kind of what endgame will be like as well. But yeah, they let us do a little bit of the Flash's storyline. We got to play the Batman Museum segment where Batman is possessed by Brainiac, and he's literally hunting us as we're exploring the Batman Museum and we're trying to find an exit. We can see Batman, going from gargoyle to gargoyle, setting up, his sticky goo traps and dropping smoke bombs, and he would take each one of us out one by one, and it was terrifying, and it was fun. The voice acting is really strong. All the characters have really good dialogue. There's a lot of really good banter between each of the characters. Jay knows, because he was in there with me when we were fighting Batman. I think we really enjoyed the narrative and the dialogue, and this has Rocksteady's DNA all over it. So while it is this 4-player, chaotic, co-op zombie blasting type of game, at the same time, you still have the narrative strength that we have come to expect from Rocksteady's incredible single-player titles. So this is a good thing, and they're expanding the universe that they built on. This picks up, after Batman Arkham Knight. So everybody knows Bruce Wayne's, Batman, and this forming of the Justice League and the Suicide Squad and all these things take place after those events. Let me know if you have any questions on the game in the comments, and I'm happy to respond as we go through here, but I'm kind of trying to get through a lot of my thoughts here. But I had a lot of fun with this game. I think utilizing the sniper that was on screen there, learning how to wall run, learning how to mix all these abilities was really fun. And getting to see all of my favorite characters on screen, albeit, I understand that I don't like the concept and other people don't like the concept that we're going to kill our favorite heroes, the Justice League. We love the Justice League. We want games where we play as members of the Justice League. We're about to get a Wonder Woman game in the future. We've had several kind of mediocre Superman games. We've had incredible Batman games. We had Gotham Knights come out not too long ago. So we're chomping at the bit for stuff like that, but I think they've managed to convince me that even though I don't like the premise of the game and I don't like the idea of killing my heroes, I'm engaged in the story and I want to know how they're going to pull it off. And I somehow expect that maybe it won't be actually killing them. It might be like incapacitating them or trapping them in some sort of way. Or damaging them where they're no longer a threat, or maybe they team up and fight Brainiac, or maybe it's just the Suicide Squad that pulls off some crazy move that manages to defeat him. And I think there's a lot more in this game that we're not seeing. Lex Luthor was in the game. We got to meet Wonder Woman. We got to meet Argus. We got to explore the Hall of Justice and listen to the audio tapes of each of the heroes talking about their origins and showing off their tech and their gear. And we got to steal their gear from the Hall of Justice. So we got to steal some hero and villain gear that we utilize. Captain Boomerang is using the Speed Force Gauntlet. Harley Quinn is using some of Batman's tech. I believe King Shark borrowed the Riddler's hat, and it's pretty cool. And Deadshot, of course, grabs the jetpack, I think, from the Hall of Justice. And so beyond that, we were kind of speculating on okay, so if this is a live service game, it's continuing beyond launch. They're probably going to have multiple characters, maybe Rick Flag, Peacemaker, Killer Croc. We were trying to think of various villains that would be able to work with these gameplay mechanics. They would have this type of traversal that we know these characters have. And they would be able to use weaponry. That's kind of why we ruled out characters like Poison Ivy, but now we've seen that Poison Ivy is, picking up off the origins of Arkham Knight. She is now quite literally a sprout, and she will be one of our weapons dealers, as will Penguin and Toyman, all these others. So yeah, very excited for that. It's very interesting. I think we're definitely going to see, as you see here, different cosmetics that will come with, different versions of the game, and probably some sort of a store where you're going to be able to purchase these cosmetics, or hopefully be able to unlock certain ones in the game through gameplay. I think that is a delicate balance that I want to see the game have, is that although I would happily pay for some stuff, I think it's nice to have things to grind towards and look forward to. Let me make sure that I've kind of hit some of my points here that I wanted to get into. Yeah, the references to other DC characters is there. The world building that they've done in Metropolis, I didn't really spend a lot of time diving too deep into it and exploring, every single thing, because it's really hard to do when you're in a team context. But when you're sort of playing solo, it's a little easier to roam around the city and find the audio tapes, look at posters. You will see different businesses and comic book references, and you'll unlock audio lore and stuff like that. You'll listen in on conversations where Batman is commanding, units of Brainiac's army, stuff like that. I really enjoyed that. Let's see. Just make sure that I've covered a lot of the subjects that I wanted to hit here. Yeah, slow-mo Boomerang was dope. Weapon customization looks good. The skill trees having different branches that you could go down, and different perks that you could select within each branch that would create builds, or allow you to be the character you want to be. If you want more melee damage, fine. If you want critical hits to deal extra damage, or if you want certain types of attacks to generate extra shields for you, if you're having trouble staying alive, then the game will allow you to tailor your playstyle that way. Yeah, I think one of the concerns was the optimization. The game was not running very well on PC. I think we were running in high to ultra settings, and the game looked gorgeous. Like, there was nothing wrong with that. But there were certain scenes and certain gameplay segments where there were a lot of things happening on screen, and frame rates started to get sketchy, or footage got grainy. But yeah, I'm hoping that they will get through some of that. Metropolis looks massive. It's definitely the city of my dreams. I've always wanted to get into and explore in a video game, and I think Rocksteady has nailed that in the best way possible. I did explain that you can have 4 players and you can play as multiple of the same character, but I think it's better to focus on having one of each character. Plus, I think you'd miss out on a lot of good banter and dialogue between each of the 4 characters if you didn't have them all on the team. Okay. So, there's another thing here where they have a thing called Social Squad, and we got to experience this in the game. Was like, if I was playing, I could have J-Star's Captain Boomerang join my team. So J-Star's not online, for example. I'm playing alone, right? And I'm playing as Deadshot, let's say. I can go through my 4 characters, and as I played as each character, it was showing me, like, oh, this is your Captain Boomerang. This is your Harley Quinn with the weapons you put on her, the clothes you chose for her to wear, the skill tree that you've given her, whatever it may be, right? So I have all those things, but I can also say I can go through and select J-Star's Captain Boomerang, and his version of the character will show up in my game. And he will actually get resources as a benefit. He'll get resources and loot that he will be able to retrieve, even though he was not actually physically in my game. But it kind of gives you that way of feeling like you're playing with your friends, even when you want to play by yourself and have that solo experience. So it's kind of like having a player avatar in like the Forza games, you know? You'll be doing a race by yourself, but you'll see your friends' gamer tags, and those avatars are based on their gameplay style and the cars that they drive and whatever it may be, right? So, yeah, this is actually really cool. I dig that. The next thing I want to talk about is that they dropped a little thing about what endgame will be like. And they've said here, endgame is a huge, constantly evolving and challenging experience for you to put your skills to the test. So I think they've gotten ahead of the curve here. They've looked at what Avengers, Gotham Knights, Destiny, Division, these other games have always struggled with endgame. So they said, endgame is about mastery of your character, traversal, talents, enemy types, mission mechanics, and your choice of build. As the difficulty increases, you will have to find new builds to overcome the challenge. That's why we have 3 distinct tiers of infamy sets in endgame, all themed around an iconic DC character. For launch, that character is Bane, and his infamy sets are themed around different ways of dominating your enemies and harnessing the chaos around you. We have a somewhat chaotic game with a constantly changing battlefield and a lot of things going on. The game is frantic and fast-paced, and we purposely made it to feel like the squad is always surrounded and in the middle of the chaos. Mastery of the game comes from you harnessing that chaos and using it as one of your strengths, turning the very thing Brainiac is throwing at you right back at him. Because our game's chaotic and we want endgame to lean into build construction as well as mastery of mechanics, we made our endgame revolve around a core backbone of mission types and provide a more predictable experience and challenge. But that doesn't mean that Brainiac is just going to sit back and let you go head-to-head with his forces without throwing a spanner in the works, or that you know what's going to happen in each mission. Brainiac keeps evolving his forces throughout the endgame, and you will have to adapt your builds to match this. So yeah, I mean, I think those are really exciting details that the developers are sharing with us here. Let me see. Gonna pull this up right here. I'm gonna make sure that there's nothing else here that I want to address. But if you have any questions or comments about the game or about my experience, just let me know. Okay. I think we're good on that. So, yeah, I think in general, now that I've had some hands-on time, and I know that you should always look at the alpha gameplay and look at it as like, hey, we're helping the devs, squash some bugs. We're playtesting the game. We're stress testing the servers and stuff like that. We didn't have any issues with connectivity, really. I think we were able to mostly stay in the same game, and there wasn't, lag or other issues like that. I think in that sense, the game ran well. I just think we had some performance issues. Let me maybe if I just bring down the quality. I think I'm pushing my internet pretty hard by, it's already 720. Okay. Trying to close some things here. But yeah, I think the largest thing was like some performance issues that we had, which hopefully are hammered out by the time the game releases. But I was genuinely surprised with how much I enjoyed the game because I was very skeptical about it going in. I wasn't sure whether I was going to enjoy the story. I wasn't sure if the gameplay was going to click because, you know, it very much looked like the kind of game that I don't enjoy playing. I'm not a big Sunset Overdrive fan. I'm not into, you know, Fortnite or anything like that. I think I just have too many videos in that queue. But yeah, I think that's the largest concern. But now that I have had hands-on gameplay, I'm much more convinced that this game is actually going to be good. And I'm actually going to enjoy it. And I'm curious to dive in and find every bit of lore, watch all the cutscenes, you know, potentially play the game multiple times, whatever it takes to sort of level up multiple characters. I didn't really glean much as to whether, because as I was playing the alpha, I was changing characters and like replaying the very short part of the game that we were allowed to play. But I'm not sure if it's beneficial to do that in the main game. So I'm a little curious about that because like I do want to level up each character and I do want to be able to play as each character in the end game, and I want to enjoy each character's perspective through the story. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work, but I think during the alpha, it actually was a lot of fun to switch it up and play as different characters rather than just sticking with one character and one idea through the whole game. Yeah, and I think a lot of people are sort of prejudging it based on what we've seen from games like Avengers and Gotham Knights. But from what I'm seeing here, it looks like they're dodging a lot of the bullets and a lot of the mistakes that were made with other games. But at the same time, you still have a lot of the same toxic fan base and community that is going to, you know, rip into the devs about, you know, whether they don't like the way a character looks or they don't like a decision they've made in the cosmetics store, or they don't like a certain way the story has portrayed, or whatever it may be. Maybe weapons, it may be balancing, whatever it may be. So yeah, I mean, they are sort of going into a field where there's a lot of critique, but I think they are already coming in really strong. Whereas with Avengers, the main storyline was single player only until you hit the DLCs, and then with this game, it's, you know, it's completely co-op from start to finish. So I think that makes a big difference, is that there's a lot of replayability there. They're already setting up for the end game. They're already planning for there to be more characters and potentially probably more enemies, right? Like maybe there's, you know, seasonal content where, you know, we're not just finding Brainiac several months from now. You know, maybe we're fighting a different enemy as the Suicide Squad. And I still want to see how things pan out with characters like Lex Luthor and Lois Lane, you know, characters that were briefly shown or hinted at in the game, you know, getting to meet Penguin and starting to get, you know, high rarity loot and stuff. It was really cool. I actually really enjoyed the gear chase of getting these weapons and stuff, which, you know, not every game needs to be a looter shooter, but I actually found that this was a natural fit and that it worked out quite well. And I was genuinely surprised about that. Yeah, I think they showed like a building that sort of hints about Joker, but I mean, there's, you know, there's story implications as to whether Joker exists in this world or not, because, you know, certain events that happen in the Batman Arkham games. Yeah, I'm really excited. So yeah, I'm gonna be playing it. I'm not sure if Sim and Cress are into it. I'm not sure if you're into it, V4, but me and J Star are excited for it. I know Kong is hyped about it. I'll have to see who else. I think Brittany TV also, we played a little bit of the alpha together as well. So I think she enjoyed it as well for the most part. You know, I think there were critiques here and there. But yeah, exploring this, the Hall of Justice was really fun. Interacting with the different characters and customizing them. Yeah, Evil Eyes is hyped for this too. So yeah, hopefully, you know, we'll have a good amount of the community that we can team up and play this game together. And we'll kind of figure out how that works as it comes out. You know, do we play bits of the story together, or do we kind of just wait for everybody to hit the end game and then we have like a night where we play Suicide Squad and do whatever, you know, if there's weekly rituals or whatever there may be, you know, reasons to keep popping into the game, even post-launch, whether it's, you know, creating better builds or preparing for whatever content might be next. I'm excited to see how they do it. This is a big challenge for Rocksteady, and I think they know that. And I'm hoping that they're actually prepared for this challenge. I mean, it seems like they are. And the alpha, you know, seems to... I think genuinely, I mean, you might realize that the game might not be for you, but I think of the people that played the alpha, I think they realized, wow, this game isn't what I thought it was going to be. Like, you know, people that already had that harsh prejudgment of like, oh, this looks like crap, you know, blah, blah, blah. Once they got hands-on, they were like, oh, actually, okay, I see what they're cooking in the kitchen now. Like, this actually looks good. This is actually fun. You know, you kind of catch yourself, you know, dropping all those biases and all that hatred. Because even I was, you know, healthily skeptical, and, you know, I'm going to play this stuff regardless because I'm a big, you know, comic book fan. I love DC Comics. I love Marvel. So I enjoyed both of these franchises, and I'm always interested to play all these characters, even though the Suicide Squad is not really a group that I'm interested in. I don't really enjoy the movies as much. I don't, you know, read the books, TV shows, various things that they've been in. I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but, you know, I'm more excited for other DC characters, mainly the heroes. But I think they've found a way through the voice acting, the characters, the abilities, the gameplay, all of this stuff to make it exciting and fun to play. And they've got me interested. They've got me interested, and I just can't wait to play more. Yeah, so in February, Suicide Squad, Helldivers 2, a bunch of other games. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is coming soon as well. So, I mean, there's a lot to play, but I think this is going to be one of my main games on the channel. So definitely hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell. Check me out on Twitter. I'll be posting builds there. I'll be doing threads and stuff, you know, posting about my thoughts, and, you know, we get into a lot of discussions there and a lot of fun conversations. Do live streams over there as well. It's a good time. So yeah, I mean, barring any additional questions, I think I've really kind of summed up a lot of my thoughts on what I think of the game, and I'm excited. I'm excited to play it. I'm really anticipating this one. I just hope that it runs well and that there's no issues at launch. I know that's tough with a big online game that everyone wants to play, and then, you know, you're also struggling with this being like a high-performance next-gen game with, you know, incredible graphics, massive open world, a lot of things happening on screen at once. I just hope that everything is properly balanced and optimized. And the other thing that I was worried about was like people making one-shot builds and stuff, but I'm genuinely just not going to play with people that adopt that type of play style. But I think from what I saw, like, when I was playing as a team with 2 or 3 other players, it really didn't feel like any one player was stealing all the kills, you know? It felt like there were enough enemies to share between us that it was a collaborative effort and we were all firing on all cylinders and players were going down and stuff. We played on the hardest difficulty, and it was enough of a challenge that we were genuinely enjoying the experience. I think this sequence right here was actually a part where we experienced a lot of performance issues, because Green Lantern kind of flies us around as we're restrained here, and this entire experience was grainy and just horrible. So yeah, I'm hoping things go well, and I'm excited to see what new characters might be added. I think the acting is very strong. Yeah, every single time during this sequence, it was really bad, no matter what the specs were on. But yeah, there you have it. Those are my thoughts on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.